I just looked at 100 people earlier that said the same thing. What can you show me that makes me believe that?
Don't just copy and paste.
Right. Copy and pasting is not good. This is a huge sign that you are really not interested in their company.
What can foreigners actually expect in terms of salary?
You can expect base salaries to range anywhere between thousands.
What's up guys, welcome to a new episode of interviewing people from Japan. Today I'm going to talk with a recruiter who knows everything about recruiting foreigners. I've got some questions I want to ask, and these questions are also some of the most common questions I get asked by you guys. Can you apply for jobs in Japan overseas? What are the things you should know before starting a career here? And how much can you earn as a foreigner here in Japan? So let's go talk to him and see what we can find out.
Thank you so much, Bertrand, for this interview.
No problem, my pleasure.
Can you please introduce yourself? Where you're from, what's your name,
Right.
and what you're currently doing in Japan?
Well, my name is Barry. I am from the United States. I was born in New York and raised in Florida. My company's name is Zen Group. We're previously known as Zen Market. We're a proxy buying service here, located in Osaka. I work in the recruiting department, the human resources department, specifically the recruiting team, for my company.
You have a lot of experiences when it comes to recruiting talents. What kind of jobs are available for foreigners wanting to move to Japan, besides teaching English?
That's a really great question. It's, it depends on the region, I would say. So, of course, like Tokyo is a bigger city. Essentially, that would be like, New York or California in the United States, where a lot of people are going to work. So when it comes to job opportunities or the range of the type of jobs you can get, of course, that would be a little bit larger. But if you take a step outside of that and you go to places like Osaka, then you're going to find a little bit more, I would say a smaller job market. So I would say one of the big things besides, English teaching that you could do is, of course, recruiting or headhunting based jobs. These jobs do require a bit of Japanese, whether that is N2 level or conversation level. That would be debatable because some of these headhunting companies are looking for English speakers to recruit foreign talent or, Japanese talent.
And besides recruiting, what other jobs are possible?
If you're very technically skilled, you can get positions for like software development, and these positions usually require less Japanese. There can be other jobs. Well, recently, I would say, or just on social media, there's been a huge buzz about Japan, right?
Yeah.
People just want to travel to Japan in their 20s and experience life here. A lot of hotels are looking for people that are skilled in communicating in Japanese, that can interact with foreign customers. So whether they can speak German, Italian, French, English,
Yeah.
This is a huge plus. And I would say it's even also a plus if you were maybe a Western national from Europe, because, I would say English is something that could be a little bit common for the younger generation. They already have that skill with them. And then their native language just becomes an extra bonus on top of their strong Japanese skills. So the customer service industry is something that could be very popular.
And speaking about Japanese, how important is knowing Japanese?
Of course, this is very important, I would say. But rather than having a documented certificate that says you speak Japanese on an N2 level or you speak Japanese on an N1 level, it's more important for you to be able to use your Japanese practically. Are you able to communicate your ideas and thoughts clearly? Are people able to understand you whenever there's an issue or a problem? I think this is important.
The Japanese level you get from test doesn't show how well you actually can use Japanese, right?
Exactly. They're just looking for people that I would say are able to communicate their thoughts and ideas. And, these interviews are going to be completely in Japanese, right? So if you're able to answer their question when they ask you why you want to apply for this job and not say my phone number or I live in Kobe, for example, that would be like a clear sign that you can communicate effectively.
And the next question I have is, can foreigners apply for jobs overseas?
I would say on the most part, that would be very difficult to do.
Really?
One of your best bets, if you want to work in Japan, is to come here and on some sort of visa, whether that is a working holiday visa or a student visa, and then begin your job search as you continue to study Japanese or as you work here on your working holiday visa part-time, right?
What do you think would be the best way?
the best bet would be able to come here on a student visa and attend Japanese language school or university, or come on a working holiday.
It will be difficult to get a job by applying overseas. There's a lot of risk involved.
I believe a lot of Japanese companies find the risk or a huge amount of risk in being able to, hire someone and bring them over. If, let's say, for example, they don't come for whatever reason, then, months spent in, trying to get this person over be in vain, essentially.
Because of the risk, companies are less willingly to help foreigners within the process.
Right, yeah. So I would say a lot of them are not willing to help with the visa process. A lot of them are also scared about the procedures, how it may not be successful. And then, the work just may end up in vain. And then people, maybe they do apply for the visa process for someone and they make it through. However, this person decides that they just would not like to come to Japan or changes their mind.
And if we take a look into job interviews, what are some typical interview questions I could expect?
If you get accepted to an interview and call, one of the basic things that someone's going to ask you in Japanese is to be able to give a jiko shokai, which is a self-introduction, right? So in Japanese, a jiko shokai is essentially a rundown of your background. And this will be very unique for someone that is from a foreign country, right? So they're going to explain where they came from, why they came to Japan, what type of career they're looking for, why they applied for this position. And this has to be something that I would say you have to rehearse and practice and kind of get it down to be able to speak smoothly. And this is also one of the first big impressions that you have on, portraying your fluency in Japanese, right?
Yeah.
So I would say this is one of the things that you should nail down. One of the other things they're going to ask you is, of course, regarding the skills or background, what type of skills you think are relevant for this role. They're going to ask you some things about your personality and character as well. They'll ask you about your chosho and tansho. Chosho is your strengths, and your tansho are your weaknesses. So you should be able to explain those, but not only just simply say, this is my strength. Why is it your strength? And not only this is my weakness, you should be able to admit to that and talk about what you've been doing to improve that weakness, right? So it should end in a positive note.
Do you also have some specific advice for the job interview?
I think some of the things that, of course, you need to prepare is you need to be able to introduce yourself, tell yourself about your background, your professional experience, what you've been doing until now. Please be able to explain your strengths and weaknesses and just follow up on them as well. You should be able to explain your shibodoki, which is essentially your PR, your appeal point. So for example, what is something about you that is unique over other applicants that you believe you possess that other people don't have, right? So this is for almost every job you are going to apply to in your life. But there are hundreds of people applying for that one position. They can only be, accepting one person. They could be accepting 5 or 3. So there's always a limitation on how many people they can accept. So that is one of the things I can think can actually set you apart is you explaining your uniqueness and why. Also, try to relax. Of course, it's really good to be able to put on a calm demeanor, make the air feel a little bit less tense. As I would say 9 times out of 10, the person interviewing you may also be nervous as well, right?
Yeah, true.
If you're a person that is a new graduate and looking to find a job here in Japan, you're gonna have to really impress them, whether that's through your speaking skills or your personal skills to be able to connect and move that person during the interview and make them feel attached to you or make them feel like you would really want to work for this company and move up and build your career.
And what are some of the biggest mistakes foreigners make when applying for a job here in Japan?
I think one of the first things that comes to my mind is know what you're applying for. I think a lot of people, when they're on the search for jobs, they tend to spam their resumes. I understand, it makes sense. Everyone is busy and, you want to apply for jobs and you want to kind of get the ball moving on terms of your career or your life, right? But if you apply for a marketing position with the same cover letter that says, I'm very interested in this English position, English teaching role because of blah, 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 this is a huge sign that you are really not interested in their company, right?
Don't just copy and paste the same letter. Actually, write about the things that fits the
Right. Copy
position.
pasting is not good. While there are tools like ChatGPT that can help people a lot, these things are obvious for a lot of recruiters or people that are looking at resumes. Besides just saying, hey, you know, my name is Barry and I have experience in digital marketing and I can run campaigns very well. As a recruiter looking at your resume, like, how do I know that you can run a campaign very well? You know, what can you show me that makes me believe that? You know, I just looked at 100 earlier that said the same thing. There's no way I can confirm this unless there's some supplementary information that you're able to explain.
You would advise them to give a bit more information, elaborate, and show some work.
Exactly. I think what makes you unique or what sets you apart from someone else, you know, just instead of just being the normal person, whether that is you running a side business or you doing photography on the side, it wouldn't hurt to show your portfolio or show your work, and you know, share a little bit more about you. If you have a website or if you write blogs personally, you know, feel free to show that or put that in your resume. If you're making YouTube videos or if you're doing something like this, you know, interviewing people and trying to learn more about them or trying to help other people, I think that's something phenomenal that people resonate with when they read your resume.
Something like that sets you apart from the others.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking about cultural differences, are there any differences foreigners should know when applying for jobs or working in Japan?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of different social differences here. Can be cultural as well. So for example, everything from how you sit, even to the point where when you hand off your business card, it makes an impression, like if you know how to hand a business card, how you to accept a business card. So for example, things in Japan, I think a lot of people know this, is that you don't just hand something with one hand. You need to hand and accept things with two hands, right? It shows that you're taking care. And if someone sees this doesn't make an impression, I would believe, on how well you know the culture or how well you're trying to adapt and understand. This can get also very more complicated or more detailed. For example, when you're speaking Japanese, you need to be using Sonkeigo and Kinjogo, which is, I believe, is you know, the humble and modest form of Japanese. So the communication in Keigo makes a big impact on how people perceive you, right? Yeah. Are you coming to an interview just speaking like slang, like, hey man, what's up? Or are you trying to be professional or keep yourself or act in an appropriate manner? That will be some of the big things that can oppress someone. So even if you're not able to use Keigo and you can say desmas, that's also okay. But if you're able to take it an extra level and, you know, throw in some Keigo here and there correctly, then you know, that would be something that would just put the extra, I would say, you know, cherry on top of the icing per se.
It doesn't have to be perfect as long as you show your effort.
Putting in the effort matters as well, of course, in trying. But of course, don't overdo yourself. I would say the best advice I would say is, like, if you're not able to handle the communication in Keigo and you feel like you can't say things correctly, you can go back to just using des and mas. So know your limitations, I would say.
And what can foreigners actually expect in terms of salary and extra benefits?
I would say one of the things in terms of salary is that this varies depending on where you're working, or where in Japan you're working, right? So if you're living in Tokyo, Tokyo's rent could go as high as 100,000 yen a month for a small little apartment. So salaries there may be a little bit higher. Some people also are, you know, trying to work on less. But as you leave Tokyo and you get to other country or other prefectures in Japan, the salaries can go down a little bit. And that's just simply because, you know, rent is also a little bit cheaper. Consumer prices are lower. But you can expect base salaries in Osaka to range anywhere between 250,000 to 350,000. I would say it would be somewhere within this range. For entry level positions, people start off at 250,000, some even lower. Because you have to think some people in Japan Japan has their shukatsu lifestyle where, in your university of third year, you're starting looking for a job, and you find your job and you start working that following year in April. And a lot of these people do not have professional experience. So it's not until you continue to work up the ladder where your salary continues to grow. For the benefits, I think I would say is your contracts. There are three types of contracts, or three types of employment in Japan, I would say, that are the most popular. There could be more. But the three I can tell you about are Hakken Shain, which is a temp worker. There's Keiyaku Shain, which is a contract worker. And there's Seishain, which is a permanent employee. This is the strongest level of employment here in Japan, which essentially means you can't exactly get fired from your job unless you're doing something illegal, or you're not showing up to work, or you can't work, etc.
You're protected by the law. They can't just fire you without any good reasons.
Right, and this can be very beneficial for foreigners working for Japan, because if you're a permanent employee, when you renew your visa, you tend to get longer years. Why? It's because, they know that you have a permanent job here in Japan. Unless you change your job or you decide to go back home, they feel a little bit safer about giving you the extra terms and length of time as you continue to work here.
Let's speak about the work-life balance here in Japan. What is your experience with it?
Japan has a whole saying of harmony, and people work hard for the benefit of the country, which would be great, but this could lead to a loss of fathers at home because they're too busy working overtime at their jobs. However, the laws in Japan has been taking a lot of actions to kind of go against this form of employment. So these are usually called buraku kigyo, or black companies here in Japan, but the laws essentially make it harder for the companies to not have things like fixed overtime or unpaid overtime for a certain amount of hours, etc. But now, you're seeing a lot of overtime being paid when people are doing it. So now that which is a great step, because now that people are working a lot of overtime, they are getting it. And in my opinion, are people working a lot of overtime here? It would depend on the company, I would say, for sure. And it also depends on, the amount of work they have at the time. And, of course, due to Japan being a declining population, the workforce is also declining, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people tend to be working, I would say, strenuous hours or a heavy amount of work.
To make up for it.
Right, to make up for that. So yes, that could happen depending on where you are or what company you're working for. But you can also work for other companies here in Japan, which are bigger companies, which essentially have been telling employees to go home at specific times. So I think, this is kind of on a downwards trend of people working or overworking. And you can see anywhere between, I think, people doing overtime per month, maybe somewhere between 10 to upwards to 20 hours during busier times of the year. For normal companies, of course, there are still black companies, they do exist, where people are doing 20, 30, 40 hours of overtime per month. But for the normal, I would say you can see anywhere between 10 to 20, and 20 would be on the busier side.
I feel like it's slowly getting better, but it's not quite there yet. Do you also have some recommendations for websites that foreigners can use remotely?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, of course, Jobs in Japan can be a great one. I really like the organizer, the developer, the owner of Jobs in Japan. He's a great person. So I would definitely recommend using his website to look for work. Of course, my company posts on there as well. For foreigners specifically, I would say Gaijinpot is a huge one. Career Cross, Daijobs. And if you're in Japan, I think something that can be valuable is attending career fairs.
Do you need to have some kind of visa, or can you just go there on like a tourism visa?
Actually, you can go there on a tourist visa and meet with companies.
And if someone wants to move to Japan a year from now, what should they already start doing?
I think some of the best things, or one of the first things I would say is start evaluating yourself in terms of your Japanese ability. And that would be a great understanding of what career path you can go down. For example, for people that cannot speak Japanese yet and they're still studying or they're at the basic level, maybe you might want to consider, English teaching jobs and coming here and continuing to build up your Japanese while you're here. That might be a little bit easier for many people before trying to search for another job. Or if you are a person that has IT skills and just cannot speak Japanese, you can look for IT work. So know your Japanese level, and that would help you decide on what path or career you have options to go down for. And also, work on understanding where you want to be in Japan. If you're going to come to Tokyo, if you know you want to live in Tokyo, this is going to require a lot more savings as opposed to going to Fukuoka, right? That's like kind of the base advice I would give someone that is looking to come to Japan for a year from now. But I would say, for my own personal opinion, if I can put this in as well, for people that want to come to Japan a year from now and may not think they're ready or may want to think about this, is there are many other options to come to Japan besides, coming to Japan and then looking for a job. For people like Itsan, I believe you're from the Netherlands, if that's
Yes.
correct. So for people that are living in the Netherlands, and there's a lot of Japanese companies that could be there already, right? So you could work for a Japanese company there and try to get transferred to a Japanese branch in the future. Or you could, continue your career in the Netherlands and build up your savings and build up your career before, trying to transfer to the Japanese department in that big company in the Netherlands, right?
Yeah.
Where they're working for a big company that's like near the Bijenkorf or something like that, right? That could be a great option for people. And I would like to make a slight argument that this can help put people in a better long-term position in Japan, as to they did have to stay an extra 5 years in their home country to work at a job and build up their career. But now that they did that, they're able to transfer to, Japan 5 years later with a stable position, a high-level position, a high-paying position, and already a high amount of savings from their time working back home.
That work experience alone can help a lot.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for all the advice you gave. I truly believe your insights and advice will help a lot of people.
Thank you. And if anyone always wants to reach out for me, they can always contact me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on numerous other platforms as well, but I think LinkedIn is the best way to reach out for me, as you did, Itsan. So thank you very much.
If you would like to get in touch with him, please send me a DM on Instagram. And if you have any questions, leave them down below in the comments. Thanks for watching, and like always, doei doei.